If one day your sister told you she was moving out, right when your mother was injured, unemployed, and leaning on the family for survival, what would you do? Hold your sister back, or let her chase her freedom? This is my story, told through the walls of the only home I've ever known. And maybe, by the end, you'll decide whether I'm the villain, or just another son trapped between love and duty. Asterisk, I grew up in a house that never felt temporary. You know how some people talk about their starter homes, or the apartment they first rented before they made it big, or the little duplex they swore they'd only stay in until the kids got older. That was never us. Our house wasn't big, it wasn't fancy, but it was ours. At least, it became mine on paper when the deed was signed over to me. But for all intents and purposes, it belonged to all three of Usme, my mother, and my younger sister. There's something about living in the same walls your whole life that etches every corner into your memory. The creak of the third stair from the bottom. The way the kitchen faucet always dripped, no matter how many times you replaced the washer. The scratch marks from our old dogs along the back door. Those things weren't just details, they were times. They told the story of years spent under the same roof, through joy, through fights, through holidays and tragedies alike. And yet, for all its familiarity, the house sometimes felt more like a cage than a home. I'm the oldest. By default, that meant responsibility landed on my shoulders. I worked, I paid what I could, and eventually I took on ownership of the house. Mum lived here too, of course, and so did my sister. Mum was the kind of person who lived through her children, sometimes in a way that felt loving, sometimes in a way that felt suffocating. And my sister, well, she was the bright one, the ambitious one, the one who always had a job with a good salary, benefits, stories to tell, and me. I'm not ashamed to admit my life wasn't flashy. I had a steady, fixed income, enough to keep the lights on, the fridge stocked, and the mortgage, what was left of it, completely gone. No loans, no banks breathing down my neck. The house was free and clear. That was my contribution, stability. But stability has a way of turning into stagnation if you're not careful. And I think my sister knew that better than anyone. For years, she talked about moving out. Not in a "I hate this place" kind of way, but in the way young professionals talk when they feel the itch of independence. She wanted her own place, a modern apartment, a balcony to drink her morning coffee on, 2 bedrooms for guests, and enough freedom to decorate the walls without anyone's opinion weighing in. I didn't blame her. Honestly, I thought she should have done it sooner, but there was always something holding her back. And usually, that something was Mum. Mum wasn't the kind of woman who asked for help out loud. She demanded it in silence. She was the type who sighed just a little louder than necessary when carrying groceries inside, who rubbed her back and muttered, "Guess I'm getting old," right after you told her you might go out with friends that night, who never said, "Don't leave me," but carried herself in a way that made you feel guilty for wanting your own life. It's a tricky kind of manipulation, the kind you can't put your finger on. If she yelled or forbade us, maybe we'd have rebelled. Maybe my sister would have moved out years ago. But Mum didn't forbid. She implied my sister, being younger and more ambitious, felt it the strongest. She wanted to travel, to live alone, to bring people over without asking, to decorate her walls with art that wasn't Mum approved. And yet she stayed, year after year. "It's convenient," she'd say. "Mum watches the dogs when I travel for work." But I knew the truth. Convenience was only half the reason. The other half was guilt. I was older. I had already made peace with the life I chose. The house was my anchor, and I didn't dream of escaping it. But my sister, she was always pacing the cage, testing the bars. She deserved more than 4 walls she'd grown up inside of. But Mum had this gravity about her. You couldn't just pull away without feeling like a traitor. I loved Mum, don't mistake me. She had been through hell to keep us together after Dad left. She worked long hours, skipped meals, bent her back until it gave out. But with that sacrifice came a sense of ownership. We weren't just her kids, we were her entire identity. And when your entire identity threatens to walk out the door, you'll use any tool you have to keep it in place. For Mum, that tool was guilt. And for years, it worked. There's a rhythm that families fall into when everyone stays too long under the same roof. Ours was like a well-rehearsed play. I'd cover the utilities and repairs. My sister would handle the streaming services, the Wi-Fi, the new tech we never asked for but somehow relied on. Mum, in her good years, cooked and cleaned. It was unspoken, but it worked. Dinner around the table wasn't optional. Holidays were big productions. If my sister mentioned moving out, the conversation died faster than a candle in the wind. We never shouted about it. We never argued. We just stopped talking. Silence was Mum's weapon of choice, and silence cuts deeper than yelling ever could. I used to think of it as a pact, though no one signed it. As long as we kept the rhythm bills paid, fridge stocked, dogs walked, then we were together, safe, whole. The house stayed full, and no one was abandoned. But there's a difference between being whole and being happy. I'd catch my sister staring at Zillow listings when she thought no one was watching. She'd point out apartments when we drove past downtown. "Look at those balconies," she'd whisper, as if it was a sin. And then Mum would clear her throat, and the conversation would die. I kept quiet. That was my role. I was the observer, the bridge, the referee. But deep down, I wondered, how long could we keep pretending this pact was sacred? How long until someone broke it? Nights in that house felt heavy. Not scary, not haunted, just heavy. Like the walls remembered too much. Every corner carried history. Every hallway carried silence. Sometimes I'd walk past my sister's room and hear her typing late into the night, working from home or distracting herself with online forums. Sometimes I'd pass Mum's room and hear the television murmuring to no one. Reruns of shows she'd watched 1,000 times, the blue glow flickering across the hallway, and me. I'd sit in the living room, staring at the same couch cushions, wondering if this was it. If this was the life I was destined to live. Caretaker, referee, silent witness. The weight of it pressed on me, but not in the same way it pressed on my sister. For me, the house was permanence. For her, it was prison. That's the thing about family homes. To one sibling, they're a sanctuary. To the other, they're a cage. And both are right. Both are true. I didn't know it then, but the balance was already shifting. The cracks in our silent pact were widening. All it would take was one opportunity, one stroke of fate, for the whole structure to tremble. And fate, cruel as it is, was already preparing to knock. There were evenings in that house when silence spoke louder than words. You could hear it in the way my sister lingered by the back door, keys twisting in her hand, as if she were rehearsing an exit she hadn't yet taken. She never outright said, "I need to leave." Instead, it came out in fragments. A casual, "Wouldn't it be nice to have a balcony?" while she watered her plants, or a half smile when she scrolled on her phone, eyes caught by apartments she'd never tour. But I noticed. I always noticed. Mum noticed too, though she pretended not to. She'd slice vegetables for dinner and ask, "Why pay rent when you've got a home here?" Her tone was light, but her knife hit the cutting board just a little too hard. For me, those whispers of escape became like static in the air. I wasn't the one dreaming of leaving, but I could feel the tension building, like a storm forming just beyond the horizon, and I started to wonder, was my sister selfish for wanting a space of her own? Or was my mother selfish for demanding she stay? It began innocently, late night scrolling. My sister would curl up on the couch with her laptop, the glow of Zillow or some apartment listing site reflecting in her glasses. I'd pass by on my way to the kitchen and catch glimpses of the pictures. White kitchens, hardwood floors, balconies that overlooked city streets lined with glowing lampposts. Sometimes she'd linger too long on a photo, her eyes softening in a way I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't just about the apartment. It was about the freedom that apartment represented. Could almost hear her thoughts. What if I could decorate it the way I want? What if no one questioned when I came home late? What if I didn't have to walk on eggshells around Mum's moods? Meanwhile, Mum noticed the scrolling too, and attention sharpened. "Don't waste your money," she'd say flatly, never looking up from her phone. "Rent's just throwing cash in the trash." But my sister kept scrolling and dreaming, and I began to realize dreams have a way of hardening into plans. Our dinners became battlegrounds, not the loud, plate-throwing kind. No hours were colder, quieter. It would start small. "My sister, I saw a two-bedroom today." "They even allow pets, Mom. You think strangers will care for you like family does?" And just like that, silence. My sister would chew her food without looking up. Mum would take another sip of water. I'd sit in the middle, wishing I could disappear into the wallpaper. Other times, the tension flared in the car. Driving home from the store, Mum's words would hang heavy, you know. When I got hurt, I thought at least I'd have both my children here for me. Guess I was wrong. My sister's hands would tighten on the steering wheel. Her jaw clenched, but she never fired back. These conversations never ended. They just stopped, suffocated mid-sentence, leaving the air thick with things no one dared to say. What haunted me most weren't the arguments we had, but the ones we never did. My sister felt guilty. I could see it in the way she lingered after work, buying Mum little gifts, paying bills before anyone asked. She was preparing her escape, but padding it with gestures of loyalty, as if to say, "I'll leave, but I'll still take care of you." And Mum, she held on to those gestures like proof. Proof that my sister wasn't serious about leaving. Proof that, deep down, her daughter would never abandon her. I stood between them, carrying the weight of promises no one spoke aloud. My sister's promise of freedom, my mother's expectation of permanence. It felt like living in a house made of glass. Every smile could shatter. Every silence could cut. And though none of us said it out loud, I knew something was coming. A breaking point. Because no one can live forever in a cage built out of guilt and love. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I was in my room, half watching some forgettable TV show, when I heard my sister's voice down the hall. She was on the phone, and though her door was cracked, her excitement carried into the hallway like electricity. "Really? This week? Yes, I'll be there. Thank you so much." I froze. When she hung up, she didn't walk. She practically floated into the living room. her phone clutched in her hand like a golden ticket. Her eyes were bright, her smile unstoppable. "They called me," she said, almost whispering. "The apartment? I'm next on the list. 2 bedrooms, balcony. They even take the pets." I wanted to share her joy. I really did. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew what this meant. Because, in our house, freedom for one person meant abandonment for another. That evening, she told Mum. She tried to make it sound casual, almost playful. "Hey, guess what? I got the call today. I'm finally at the top of the wait list. I could be signing the lease next week." But Mum's face hardened immediately. She didn't ask details, didn't congratulate her. She just shut down, double quotes. "Oh, so you're leaving?" My sister's smile faltered. "Mum, it's not like that. I'll still be here for you. I'll still pay the bills until..." But Mum cut her off. "Don't bother explaining. I get it. You've been waiting for this moment, haven't you?" The air went ice cold. Dinner was silent that night, except for the scrape of forks on plates. My sister picked at her food, her appetite gone. Mum didn't look at her once, and me. I sat there between them, watching the celebration curdle into betrayal in the span of 10 minutes. The days that followed felt like living in a freezer. Mum stopped talking to my sister, unless absolutely necessary. No good morning, no how was work. Just silence, stretched thin and sharp. My sister kept trying, leaving post-it notes on the fridge, making coffee for Mum, even offering to run errands. But Mum brushed her off every time. "She's punishing you," I whispered to her one night, when Mum had gone to bed. "I know," she said quietly, tears in her eyes. "But what am I supposed to do? This apartment won't wait. If I say no, it'll be years before I get another chance like this." Her voice cracked on that last word, and I realized how long she'd been holding her breath in this house, waiting for air that never came. And yet, the guilt in her eyes was undeniable. She wasn't just leaving a house. She was leaving a mother who depended on her. The night before she was set to sign the lease, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Mum barely acknowledged her, retreating into her bedroom with the TV turned up loud. My sister paced the living room, papers in her hands, bank statements, pay stubs, the proof she needed for the lease. She looked at me suddenly, desperate. "Do you think I'm a terrible daughter?" The question cut me in half. I thought of Mum, her injury, her pain, her fear of being left behind. I thought of my sister, her dreams, her exhaustion, her desperate need for space to breathe, and me, stuck in the middle, carrying both of their weights. I swallowed hard. "I think you're human." She closed her eyes, nodding, tears sliding down her face. That night, the house didn't sleep. The silence was too heavy, too full of the choice waiting for her in the morning. Because tomorrow, everything would change. Asterisk, the morning she left to sign the lease, the house was silent. No well wishes, no hugs, no good luck. Just silence, stretched like barbed wire between the three of us. I watched her gather her folder of documents, the pen she'd chosen specifically for this moment. She dressed carefully, like it was a job interview or a graduation, some occasion that marked a new beginning. She lingered by the front door for just a second. I thought maybe Mum would call out, maybe offer some last-minute plea, maybe even forgiveness. But Mum's bedroom door stayed closed, so my sister whispered, "Wish me luck," to no one in particular, and left. I sat on the couch, after the door clicked shut, staring at the spot where she'd stood, wondering if the weight of this moment would ever leave the house, or if it would live here forever, like a ghost. When she came back later that day, keys to the new apartment jingling in her hand, the house was no longer silent. It exploded. Mum stormed into the living room, eyes red, voice trembling. "So that's it? You've just abandoned me. After everything I've done, everything I've given up, you leave me now?" My sister froze. "Mum, I'm not abandoning you. I'll still cover the bills until bills." "You think this is about bills?" Mum's voice cracked. "This is about family, about loyalty, about a daughter who'd rather run off than stand by her mother when she's broken." My sister's face crumpled. "I can't keep living my life just to make you comfortable. I need space. I need you, need selfishness," Mum snapped. "That's what you need." I sat there, heart pounding, feeling like I was watching a dam burst after years of pressure. Everything they'd swallowed for months, maybe years, came spilling out, raw and ugly. And for the first time, I realized there would be no going back. After that night, the house was split in two. Mum retreated deeper into her grief, her anger hardening into stone. She spoke less and less, except to remind my sister of all the ways she'd failed the family. My sister packed boxes in silence, moving clothes, books, little pieces of her life into the car. Every trip out the door felt like another nail in the coffin of what we once were, and me. I drifted between them, trying to be Switzerland in a war where neutrality wasn't possible. Mum cornered me in the kitchen. "How can you just let her do this?" My sister pulled me aside. "Please tell me I'm not the bad guy." Both of them wanted my loyalty. Neither of them realized I was drowning under the weight of theirs. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a battlefield. And I was stuck in the crossfire. The day finally came when my sister moved out. Her room, once cluttered with plants and books, stood empty, just a mattress outline on the carpet, a faint shadow where her dresser used to be. She hugged me at the door, whispering, "Come visit me soon, okay? It won't feel real until you're there." But when she turned to Mum, there was no hug. No words. Just a glance that carried more history, more pain, than anything they could have said aloud. That night, the house felt cavernous. Quiet in a way that wasn't peace, but absence. Mum sat in her chair, staring at the TV without really watching. I sat across from her, the silence pressing down, both of us pretending not to hear the echo of what was missing. And though my sister had finally found her freedom, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were the ones left behind, trapped in a house that had lost more than just a daughter. It had lost its center, its heartbeat, and I wondered if any of us would ever recover from it. The first time I visited my sister's new apartment, it felt like stepping into another world. The place was bright, airy, full of light that never seemed to reach the corners of our old house. There were half-unpacked boxes stacked against the walls, a sofa too new to be comfortable, and her pets racing across the floor like they already belonged. She gave me a 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a balcony where she'd already placed a tiny potted plant. She stood there, smiling as the wind brushed her hair, and whispered, "This is mine. All of it, mine." I smiled back, but inside, I felt something twist. Because while she had finally found her freedom, I couldn't help but wonder what price had been paid for it. Back at home, Mum pretended life hadn't changed. She cooked the same dinners, watched the same TV shows, sat in the same chair, but there was a bitterness in her silence now, sharper than before. She never mentioned my sister by name. If I brought her up, Mum's face would close like a slammed door. She made her choice, Mum would say flatly. Don't expect me to go running after her. Yet sometimes, late at night, I'd pass her room and see her sitting awake, staring at the dark. And I wondered if she was replaying the fight in her head, searching for the moment when things broke for good. I became the bridge. Whether I wanted to or not, my sister called me often, her voice bubbling with stories about decorating, new neighbors, even the joy of choosing her own groceries. But beneath the excitement, I could hear the loneliness, the hesitation in her laugh. Mum, meanwhile, leaned on me harder than ever. She asked me to fix things around the house, to handle errands, to fill the space my sister once occupied, and I caught between them felt myself stretched thin. With each passing week, I wondered if I could keep both of them afloat, or if I'd eventually drown trying. One evening, I found myself back on my sister's balcony. The city lights stretched below us, glowing against the night sky. She leaned on the railing, quiet, thoughtful. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer. Forgiveness isn't a straight line. It's a maze one my mother wasn't ready to walk, so I told her the only truth I had. Families break. They bend, they bruise. But sometimes, that's what it takes to figure out who we are. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. As I drove home that night, I thought about how family isn't just about staying. It's about the struggle between leaving and holding on, between freedom and obligation, between guilt and love. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, this story wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about the cost of choosing yourself. When the people you love want you to choose them instead. The house is quieter now. Not peaceful, never. Peaceful, but quieter. There are nights when I can almost hear her footsteps echoing down the hallway. The sound of her laughter drifting from her bedroom. The smell of her coffee in the morning. But when I turn, there's only silence. Only the memory of what used to be. Mum carries herself as though nothing is missing. She cooks, she cleans, she watches her shows. But every so often, I catch her staring at the empty chair at the dinner table, her eyes clouded. And I know, though she will never admit it, she feels the absence like a phantom limb. My sister, meanwhile, thrives and struggles all at once. She sends me pictures of her apartment, the new curtains she hung by herself, the plants arranged just so on the balcony, the pets sprawled happily across her rug. Her voice on the phone is lighter, freer, but beneath the excitement, I hear it, the loneliness of being untethered, the ache of knowing she left pieces of herself behind, and me. I live in both worlds and in neither. I carry my mother's grief in one hand, my sister's freedom in the other. Some days I feel like a bridge, other days like a fracture line. What I've learned is this: families don't break all at once. They crack slowly under the weight of unspoken words, of guilt unshared, of dreams deferred too long. The final break, the shouting, the slammed doors, the signed leases, just the moment when the fault line finally gives way. But maybe breaking isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of something new, something less tidy, less certain, but no less real, because my sister isn't wrong for wanting a life of her own, and my mother isn't wrong for fearing abandonment. They are two truths that cannot exist in the same space without colliding. So now, I sit in the middle, in the ruins of what was, watching both of them try to build new lives out of the same wreckage. And I wonder, Will time soften the edges of their anger? Will forgiveness creep in slowly, like sunlight through curtains? Or will this be the story we carry forever? The daughter who left, the mother who stayed, and the son caught in between. For now, there are no answers. Just the echo of a house divided, and the quiet hope that someday, somehow, we'll find a way back not to what we were, but to something we can live with. Because in the end, family isn't about staying under the same roof. It's about finding a way to remain in each other's lives, even when the walls between us feel too high to climb.